Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Thursday night, June 1st, in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. One of our favorite websites, this one sponsored here by NASA, which shows us soil moisture, has been down for a while, and I've got a lot of questions about it, so I just want to let you know. I've been in contact with them about it. They had a failed set of disks and servers, and they're rebuilding it right now, and we are anxiously waiting to get that product back. It's a fantastic product that is being supported by NASA, and I'm anxious to get it back. So we have other ways by kind of looking at soil moisture, and this is one from the CPC. By the way, on Tuesday, I'll actually be testifying in front of Congress about the new bill to fund NOAA, and there's great bipartisan support, but I'll be representing the ag sector in those hearings, so I'm excited to kind of represent us as we continue to support this incredible organization that provides such critical information to growers the world over. But here we go. Map I was talking over, this is the soil moisture change in the month of May. Now, I just got curious about this because not having that NASA data and seeing maps like this, I wanted to just get out and have a quick look at some things. Now, the analysis I'm going to do for you here, this is for one field. That's it. There's just one picture or one series of pictures I want to show you. But where I live over here in Champaign, Illinois, which is right here, this is what data would suggest. So if I blow this up a bit, the last time we've measured precipitation more than 1/10 of an inch, especially at this farm I was at, was 23 days ago. Now, there have been storms all around, pop-up storms, hit-or-miss storms throughout much of this part of the Corn Belt. Not really into Ohio or Michigan or Pennsylvania, not into this area, but in the midsection of the country. This particular field had not been hit yet by one of these storms. So it has been 23 days since there's been precip. And if you look here at the precipitation statistics, you can see that we're at about 72.9% of normal and off by about almost 4.5 inches. So most of that's come here in the month of May as we flatlined. Now, just thinking about that, I want to show you some pictures I took. So I just standard soil moisture probe. This went down about a foot, and I want to show you what things just look like, just to add some context. So breaking it apart kind of piece by piece, you can see here that there was pretty good moisture. Looks like I need to get my nails worked on here, but there's pretty good moisture in that soil. I was very surprised to see this. I kept working down and continued to find that, and even down here at the bottom, so this is about 8 inches down, you can still see the moisture that had been retained in the soil. Now remember, this is just representative of one field. It's just me trying to gauge what the soil moisture is like in a place that's not seen rain for a long time. And I was able to flatten it out like this, and just a quick test to see just what that moisture looked like. And one last view of it just to kind of show you what we were seeing here. I was very surprised by this. And the top 2 inches was dust, but the corn crop had pushed its roots down into this. And this is what gives me hope that part of this crop is going to be able to last the next 10 days in this part of the country. But there are other parts of this corn belt that I am not as confident about. And even though we continue to see very large clusters of storms continuing to just pop in the midsection of the United States, borne on a pretty interesting subtropical flow. Watch right here. See these high, thin clouds? How strong that subtropical jet is coming in there. We're getting the jet to curl around and deliver these storms and make these lows coming off the mountains. But there's a large section of the country here and then getting down into the southeast that some places are going to see no precipitation for another 7 days, and some places are only going to see pop-up storms overall from this pattern that we're currently stuck in here. There is still, we're watching down here in the tropics, this was upgraded to a 50% chance. In fact, let's go check out the newest updates here. nhc.noaa.gov. I know they updated it this morning. They've got it named. I apologize. TD2. I've been out checking fields all day, so I haven't been able to watch this particular system. So it's tropical depression, and they've got it moving south. That's a very odd direction, but I'm going to tell you why it's doing this. This is very important, actually, to the narrative I'm about to carry forward in this forecast. I'm glad we brought that up here. So again, outside of that system right there spinning itself around, we're going to watch for some coastal low development later this weekend to curl up into New England. But other than that, not much has overall changed in this narrative. So looking back at the last 24 hours, this is through 4 o'clock in the afternoon here on Thursday, we can just see the daily rainfall amounts. There was outstanding rain that went through parts of central, Iowa, hit northern Missouri, came again into this part of Kansas, right around this very dry area here in Nebraska. And if I just was forced to pick, I'd say that this particular region and much of lower Michigan is right now kind of on my radar as being the most kind of adversely affected by the recent precipitation pattern shifting away from good moisture. But we've got too much of it now in Texas. There's been several pictures that have surfaced that have shown flooding. Scattered storms still kind of follow that corridor from the Sierra Nevada all the way through the Rockies here into Montana. Lots more rain coming here into the Canadian Prairie. And I'll just make kind of a point. If you're west of that line, we will see isolated storms continue. West of this line, much more heavier rains are going to continue with severe weather on the plains. But if we're east of this is the driest spot I think we're going to see for the next several days. Now, just to show you what the near-term models are doing, you're just going to watch this quickly. This is Thursday night. Storms die in the overnight hours and then pop again on the heat of the next day. That's Friday afternoon and evening. And again, it's just storms in all the same places we've seen. We still have the same kind of outlooks day in and day out on the severe weather risk in the southern plains. And then you get in here into Saturday. This is Saturday morning, and I'll watch again the day on Saturday. The storms just pop again. There's that coastal low we mentioned going up toward New England. So that's the pattern we're in. And we've kind of tried to attribute this to something, and I want to make a case for this again today. This is what the jet stream level flow is doing. So we have troughs of low pressure that are cutting in. See all these little troughs coming in, plus the big subtropical jet here? This is what's keeping all of the activity here in the plains of the United States. Here's the trough associated with that tropical system we're keeping an eye on. But this big ridge right here, hot, dry. Flow over the top of it, dry. There's no real lift in the atmosphere in this particular region, and the stagnant flow is causing all of our problems. So no real changes in the next 7 days. This is the newest update from the WPC, showing you just the next 7 days of precip. So we'll watch a coastal system. We will watch the Tropical Depression 2, and then we're going to keep an eye on just the constant storms that are going to run up this part of the country out of the Intermountain West. I feel like I've drawn this 10 times in a row, and scattered storms to the west of that line. This is the driest area going forward in this forecast. Now, I have just heard a tremendous amount of commentary on this from people in all walks of life and profession over the last couple of days. And I thought it would just be good to step back and say, all right, what can we actually attribute this to? Because a lot of the attribution is being, I think, kind of erroneously assigned to this, the cold water off the West Coast. I've heard so many people say that because of this negative PDO signal that we have, that this is what's driving the pattern. And I want to make a case to say that's not it. It could be a component, but it is not the case. I'll show you what it looks like when the PDO is negative. They talk about, well, is the El Nino coming as fast? Yeah, it's still really much coming on. But as we studied last week, remember, even with the developing El Nino, the central part of the Corn Belt and Eastern Corn Belt historically, and that goes all the way down to the Mississippi, through the Mississippi Basin. We talked about this last week. That is a region that historically, when there's a developing El Nino, is drier in May and in June. It's the July and August rains that tend to come back. But are we in a little bit of unprecedented territory? With the warmth we see in the ocean here, in the Indian Ocean, the developing El Nino, and this incredible warmth here in the North Atlantic, that particular temperature pattern is driving the pressure pattern, which is driving the winds. And we've lost momentum in the flow of the atmosphere. And I want to make a case to kind of just explain what this is and when do we start to see any sense of a change in it and what that could mean for agriculture. So here we go. The PDO. Why do I not attribute what's going on right now to the PDO? Well, in May and June, if you look at sea level pressure anomalies, and remember, when we're going to have hot, dry conditions, we're going to have high pressure, okay? When you look at the correlation of sea level pressure and the PDO, we have a negative PDO and a negative correlation, which means there should be large area of high pressure sitting right here, all right? There should be high pressure sitting in this vicinity. And we don't have either of these two things right now. And normally, when the PDO is this negative, it tends to just, like I said, come around like this. Flow comes screaming into the west, keeps the west cooler, gives the west better chances of seeing moisture, again, coming from the northwest. And then it just produces too much stagnant flow in the midsection of the country, and the pressure gets high right here over like South Dakota, and we tend to have trouble. That's where the drought tends to come into the plains, and the drought tends to come into the western Corn Belt. Now, that's if the PDO, again, this cold water, which is just a partial part of the PDO signal, that's what you'd expect to get. So what have we had? Well, since May 10th, when the pattern really began its transition to this drier time period, we don't have that. In fact, we have a trough of low pressure here, and we have high pressure cells 1, 2, and 3, and it is this one, that one right there, that we have to be talking about. That is where the Bermuda high, which normally sits here, has gone. And as it moved this direction, it helped establish, because of the warm water in the North Pacific and the warm water in the North Atlantic, the Triple Ridge. Now, this is a pattern that I fear in the middle of July and August, but it's May when this showed up. And we want to know if this is going to shift or change with time. So we know right now that this ridge is fading and it's going to start to move back toward the west. That's good. We need to work on this ridge and getting the Bermuda high to come back over here. Now, the reason why we need the Bermuda high to be in its normal position is because if the high were where I'm drawing this arrow, it would be pumping moisture into this area, increasing the temperature gradient and promoting storms across a much, much broader area. But the Bermuda high is retreated, and this is the culprit right now. That's what needs to be discussed. That must change in its position to affect this entire pattern. And I am guilty of putting more emphasis on the Pacific Ocean than I am the Atlantic. But I just needed time to see this. In the last couple of weeks, we've kind of narrowed it down, and I think that's the main idea here. Now, I want to be very clear. I hear all the time people comparing this year to 2012. And could we be seeing dryness like some people saw in 2012? Oh, absolutely. But the cause is nowhere close to being the same. Because the same time period, May 10th through the 30th in 2012, had the Bermuda high in its right spot. You say, well, why didn't it rain? It didn't rain because the flow came over this, and the jet stream flow was strong through Canada, not through the United States. And there was no subtropical jet to speak of. And there was no developing El Nino. So you see, it was a much different scenario. We actually had a Bermuda high, but nothing to use the moisture to do anything. And by the way, remember, in the month of May, we did not have a lot of unhappy farmers in 2012. It was mid-June through August that the drought of 2012 came on. And I want to be clear about this, so I decided to go to the drought monitor, and I want you to look here at what the drought looked like. This is May 29th, 2012. That's what the drought monitor looked like. The drought that was most important in 2012 was what was left here from the year before, and this. The drought in the southeast. So watch, this is 2012 you're looking at. This is the current situation. We do not have drought here. And you say, well, what does the drought there matter? Well, in 2012, that drought, watch, let me show you this again real quick. There's 12, there's 2023. May 30th versus May 29th. It's almost the same day. We're just comparing kind of back and forth here. Now, I'm going to make a case for why this is important down here. So let's now flip this from May 29th. I'd like to show you what happened by, I don't know, let's go July the 10th. Ready? The drought that was here expanded in this direction. And what we did was right here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, getting over to like the Arkansas River, the Red River of the South, we now put a lot of dry air in place. So even if the subtropical ridge called the Bermuda high is in place, it's not able to funnel moisture through the dryness. So it never made it on the other side. It got zapped out here. I mean, that's what happens in the atmosphere. This dryness pulled the moisture out and was not able to let it get through. Such that by, let's just go another month, by August 7th, this whole region got drier and drier. My point is to tell you that these comparisons to 2012 in terms of the meteorology are not accurate. It's just a different scenario. In fact, this is what the ocean temperatures look like in 2012. Now, if you want to talk about the influence of a PDO, this is the negative PDO. Look at that monster. Cold from the Aleutian Islands to British Columbia to California back to Hawaii. And this is all El Nino ever accomplished in 2012. This is a scary pattern, and we look like this. That's the difference. So because I get asked, I want to make sure you know what I'm seeing here. Now from there, I want to show you how quickly our El Nino is developing this year. We basically went from March having weak La Nina to now being up here and maintaining above 0.6 degrees C above average. That, by ocean temperature standards, is El Nino. So are we waiting for El Nino to dominate the pattern? Absolutely we are. Can I give you a date? I think June 10th is going to begin the transition where the subtropical jet, which is common in El Nino years, begins to take over on this pattern. So let's make a case for that, and then we'll just see how this plays out. I'm also going to tell you this before I even leave this particular slide. If the rains that have been forecast to show up about 10 days from now for those driest parts of the Midwest, if they do not manifest themselves, we have an entirely different conversation. And that's why I told you for the last couple of weeks, my date that is top of mind for me right now is actually the summer solstice. June 21st is a very important decision time period for how things are going to continue to shake down. So what's going on right now with the Bermuda high? It is still anomalously high toward Great Britain. And what I need you to see here is that as we go out over the next, little while here, this is a 7-day sliding window. Getting to about June 21st, we no longer see it being anomalously high here. And you see the lower pressure that comes into this area? That's key. We need the pressure to drop in this area, pressure to build here, so that we can start to return better flow to those really, really dry places. And to be honest with you, we need the heat to actually come into the west. The west is behind on picking up heat so far this year, so it's good to start to see that. So that's why this critical change, do you see how the blues are going away? That's what we need to be seeing. The pressure's increasing in the forecast model about 8 millibars. And while that may not seem like much, I'm watching right here, by the way, that is the sense of change that we need to pick up on. Now, what's helping it out? It does help that the MJO is finally getting away from the West Pacific, going to sweep through here over the next 10 days. I don't want to see it jump right back over here, though, but we'll need to see how it progresses through the Indian Ocean and if it's able to get past the maritime continent. Historically, it is actually difficult for the MJO to get through Indonesia, which is the maritime continent. My hope is that it comes out and hangs out somewhere in this area for a while. Now, the jet stream is already showing signs of making some shifts. We saw major jet retraction. That's where it's having a difficult time getting off of parts of China and Japan. And now the forecast is beginning to show an extension, and it's a little bit north of average, which means the jet's kind of coming through this direction. We're also going to watch the subtropical jet get energized as well. So this longer term pattern is relying on this extending first and then this getting into the Midwest. Ready? So if we look over, through June 4th, 5th, 6th, that's the jet extension that was represented on that phase diagram. That is helping to take this ridge, which will be here until June 7th. Now watch right here. We're going to flatten this out and move it a bit farther west. And at that time, this kind of broken up subtropical jet begins to increase its influence in the Mid-South, in the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Mississippi Valley. And as we go out there past June 12th, we now see that the models are attempting to give us a bit of a split in the flow here versus splitting the flow over the midsection of the country. So overall, that narrative has not changed too much. What I want to show you next is a 72-hour sliding window of precipitation forecast by the ECMWF ensemble. Now, I know there's a lot of emphasis being put on model run to model run to model run, and there's value in that, but when the changes are happening 10 days from now, that's expected no matter what. What I'm trying to show you here is the ensemble support for this. So this is getting us through the next week. That's a 72-hour sliding window from the next 72 hours all the way through the next week. Now, this area, we do not expect it to begin to fill in earnest until after the 10th. And this is where we see the models attempting to do that. We're now up here, the 72 hours ending on Sunday afternoon, the 11th, and then going forward into the middle of June. So there's a corridor that's opening up in through here that's going to be seeing better storms. The last holdout for drier weather is going to be this part of the upper Midwest, Great Lakes, and Ontario. But that's been a part of this narrative. Now, my other statement with all of this is just to remind myself and to remind anybody watching, one wet time period in June will not undo risk in the longer term. This has to continue and carry into July and into August in this particular area, which I'm focusing just on these very dry states right in through here. So what does that mean in terms of precipitation? Let's now do a 1 week sliding window. We know that the next week is dry in here other than these pop-up storms. But as this just goes out, we look out here farther, and you start to see that the week that goes from the 13th of June to the 20th of June, this corridor opens up in the latest European ensemble. And there's just better storms in this area. And that's the transition we've been waiting for. Now, the model never really goes back over dry after that. It really kind of keeps an active pattern all the way through the beginning of July. And I'll be excited to see next, the 5th, whatever June 5th is, to see the new European monthly forecast. They'll be the first out. Is there support from this in other models? There is. This is the newest update from the CFSV2. This is the 15th to the 21st. Again, see that corridor in through there? In fact, they've extended it into this region. And then you go from June 22nd to the 28th, and it's still there. A lot is hinging on this coming true. And I'm going to say it again. If it doesn't, and we have missed this, and that is always a possibility, if we've missed this and we're not seeing the right meteorological factors coming together, then there's going to be significant stress going forward on this crop because there is not enough soil moisture. No matter how many pictures I show you that look like this cannot survive another 15 days of heat. And that's going to continue to zap that out of there. So I just want to make sure I make that point. What about the heat? Well, here's the next 15 days of temperatures. So you're going to notice a lot of heat in the Midwest, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, getting back here into central Canadian prairie. This cooler weather along the East Coast will shift a little bit, but the cooler weather here, nope, that'll be around. 5-day sliding window. This is day 5 through 10, so this is the 6th through the 11th. And as the ridge backs off and goes west, all the way out there, this goes out to June 16th, so this is the 11th through the 16th. We do see the temperatures backing off, the heat coming where they need it in the Pacific Northwest, but not overly hot in California. And you can see here where the cooler weather is going to be with those storms we continue to talk about. The last couple things I want to just discuss here quickly. This is the newest 2-week outlook from the CPC. They continue to kind of peel this back and send it farther to the north, and they are bringing in the cooler weather. So there's agreement here. But the newest updates from the CPC that just came out yesterday show us their new 1-month outlook for the month of June. They released on May 31st. They might revise this just to maybe make that circle with the dryness. I think there's going to be better rains again into that corridor, which we keep identifying. And while we're going to start off hot, remember this does fade once we get out past the next 7 or 8 days. There's a lot of heat coming in the next 7 or 8 days, but it does fade in this area after that. The other thing to look at is their new monthly outlook is trying to capture where we're expecting to see that flash drought type criteria while the storms just continue to eat the drought away in this section of the country. So what needs to happen is about 10 days from now, this pattern needs to shift to get away from these isolated storms to larger thunderstorm complexes with cooler weather and better flow. That is top of mind as we look at this forecast going forward. Okay, that is what I wanted to share with you in the in-depth report. We will keep a close eye on all of this. I look forward to talking again tomorrow morning. Thanks.